You did the right thing by clicking on this video, because we are not just going to discuss the questions from RTP, but I'm also going to discuss the concept in detail with the help of my special handwritten notes. I will show you how to identify the keywords and sentences and frame the entire answer using just those few words and sentences. We will not only discuss the concepts, but we will also learn how to apply the concepts in the question and to frame the answer as required by the institute. The best part is that these lectures are in English only to suit all types of students. If you're watching my video for the first time, I am CA Preeti Agarwal and I make videos specially for you. Subscribe to your channel Theory Masters Learning and hit the bell icon so that you get notifications for such important videos. So let's get started. Now students, we are going to discuss the entire RTP into two parts. In the first part, we are going to discuss only those questions which are asked from the Indian Contract Act. In the second video, in part 2, I am going to cover the questions from the remaining acts. Now, the reason for dividing the RTP discussion into two parts is that I didn't want to make a very lengthy video of 3 to 4 hours. So we have divided the video into manageable length. Now, in this video, I'm not only going to discuss the questions, but I'm also going to discuss the concept. So don't consider this as just a question answer discussion, or I'm just going to inform you this should be the answer. Answer is already available to you. What I am going to do is I'm going to also revise the concept and give you handwritten notes for the same. Now, I could have easily made a PDF and shared these handwritten notes with you on my Telegram channel, website, Instagram, but I have chosen not to do that for a reason. The reason is that whenever you write notes in your own handwriting, it is very easy for you to remember those notes till the exam. That is the right way of studying law. Normally, what happens is students get ready-made notes, they download those notes, they download a lot of material is now available on the internet. They download that material, and what happens in the end? It is either downloaded in your mobile and you forget about it, or your laptop and you never view it. But things that you write in your own handwriting are always available with you, and you want to read those, and it will also help you one day before the exam. There is a direct connection when you write the notes. There is a direct connection to your brain, and it is very, very easy for you to remember law that way. This is the correct way of remembering law. Write and practice, write and practice. I have always advocated that habit of writing, making your own notes, because that is the only way to learn law. Now, in this video, I am going to teach you how to frame answers, because that is one query which many students have. Man, we know the concept, but we don't know what to write, we don't know how much to write. So I'm going to teach you that also, and I will also teach you a trick wherein you just write one or two sentences and you will automatically be able to link it, you will be able to form a loop, and you will know what the next sentence should be. So watch this video till the end, because I'm going to teach you many techniques of framing the answer by remembering just one or two points. Okay, so let's get started and let us go through the first question. Explain the type of contracts in the following agreements under the Indian Contract Act 1872. Now, X promises to sell his scooter to Y for rupees 1 lakh. However, the consent of X has been procured by Y at gunpoint. Now, in this case, students, whenever you read this question, always identify the keywords on which you will base the answer. Now, here the keywords are the consent and gunpoint. These are the keywords. Okay, you should then identify the parties. In this case, who is obtaining the consent at gunpoint? Okay, so Y is obtaining the consent at gunpoint. And who is the person who is aggrieved in this case? Who is the dukhi person? X. So X is the aggrieved person whose consent is being so obtained. Always identify the parties and then proceed. Okay, so we have identified two words, consent and gunpoint. You have to frame the answer on these two words. That's it. Now you know how the answer is to be framed. So let us go through the theory which will help us to solve this question. Now, consent. I identified that word. What is consent? Consent means parties must agree upon the same thing in the same sense. What is free consent? Consent is free if it is not caused by coercion, undue influence, fraud, misrepresentation, mistake. So, this is the first point that you will write. Consent should be free without any compulsion or without forcing someone to enter into contract. Consent is not free when it is caused by coercion, undue influence, fraud, misrepresentation, mistake. Okay. Tell me, if the consent is obtained by coercion, undue influence, fraud, misrepresentation, then the contract is voidable. And in case the consent is obtained by mistake, then it is void. Okay. So this is about consent. You have identified what is to be written about consent. Okay. Then what is happening in this case? You are obtaining the consent at gunpoint. What is it? Coercion, undue influence? Yes, students, very good. It is coercion. So your second point should relate to coercion. So you will say that X is obtained, the consent of X has been obtained by Y at gunpoint. Coercion is used. What if coercion is used? Contract is voidable. So your second point of explanation should be that coercion is used and the contract is voidable. What is a voidable contract? Voidable means the aggrieved party, the dukhi party, X, has two options: either to treat the contract as valid, keep quiet, treat the contract as valid, or to cancel the contract. Yes. So your answer should contain two main points. First, you will explain consent and free consent. Then you will identify that coercion is used and you will say that the contract is voidable. Now, students, please note that the option to treat the contract as voidable is available only and only with the aggrieved party. That is X in our case. No such option is available with Y, the party causing coercion. Okay, will you remember that? So pause the video. Now that we have discussed the question and the theory, pause the video, write this in your notebook. That is the only way to remember law and to learn law. Okay. So you have written, pause the video and written the theory. Very good, students. Now let us read the second question. A bought goods from B in 2005, but no payment has been made till 2019. Now students, think, why has the institute given you the year? That is because they want you to identify that there is a gap of 3 years. Okay, if there is a gap of 3 years, it means yes, that concept of time barred debt will apply. See how hints are given in the question itself. So this is nothing but a time bar debt. Now, what is a time bar debt? Time bar debt means a debt which is so old that now you cannot enforce it. You cannot legally file a case. Okay, you cannot enforce it legally. Okay. Now, what is the meaning of a time bar debt? Time bar debt means a debt which remains unpaid or unclaimed for a period of 3 years. Okay, so 3 years is important here. Becomes a time bar debt and it is legally not enforceable. Okay, so time bar debt means debt which is beyond 3 years. 3 years have passed. You cannot legally recover it. See, the debt remains valid as a good debt. But the only thing is that now it is legally not recoverable. You cannot file a case and recover it. So in this case, A bought goods from B in 2015, but no payment was made till 2019 and B has not taken any action. So you will state that it has become a time barred debt and it is legally not recoverable. G agrees to give tuitions to H, a pre-engineering student, from the next month. Okay, so the hint over here is next month. And in consideration, G also promises to pay 5,000 rupees per month. Now tell me, students, at the time of formation of the contract, have the parties performed the contract? Have they performed any of their promises? No. Both the parties will perform their promise in the future. So this type of contract is known as, yes, can you tell me? Executory contract. So a contract is said to be executory when both the parties, the key word here is both the parties. So when both the parties have to still perform their obligation, then it is known as an executory contract. See, they may have to perform their promise either in whole, like X has to give tuitions, Y has to make payment. Both have to perform in totality. Or it may so happen that both have performed part of their promise, but something still remains to be done by both the parties. It may so happen that X has to give tuitions and Y has paid, let's say, 1,000 rupees, but he has to still pay the remaining. So it may be either both of them have to perform their promise in totality, in toto, that is how it is said, or both have performed part of the promise, but still something remains to be done by both the parties. So that is executory contract. So in this question, they actually want you to explain the executory contract. So over here, you will say that both the parties have to still perform their obligation. The contract is executory. G will give tuitions in the future and then H will pay the money in future. Both have to perform the promise. It's an executory contract. Students, the next question is a theory question. To form a valid contract, consideration must be adequate. Comment. Okay, is it correct? Should it be adequate? No. So, how will you frame the answer? You know the answer that consideration need not be adequate. But what are the points that you will write? See, I will tell you, I will show it to you. I'll show you just one point and then we will form a loop and frame the entire answer. Now, what is the meaning of consideration? Consideration means something in return. Okay. Now, this you will first write the point that consideration means something of value. Okay, consideration must be of some value because this is the heading for that question. Consideration must be of some value. If you see my notes also, my textbook, consideration must be of some value is the heading, and in that we have written explanation. So let's see that. Consideration must be of some value. So what is consideration? That will be your next point. Consideration means something in return. Okay, something means anything of value. Okay, see how we have linked these points. So you need to remember only one point. Consideration must be of some value. What is consideration? It means something in return. What is something? Anything of value. Okay, so now we have covered the word consideration. Now let us come to the word adequate. Consideration may seem adequate, it may seem inadequate. Now let's say that I want to sell you my car for rupees 5 lakhs. It seems adequate. But what if I say you are such a dear friend of mine that I am ready to sell my car to you only for 500 rupees? Will that inadequacy make the contract void? No, it is open to both the parties to fix the price. So law has left it open to the parties. You decide the price at which you want to sell. So consideration may seem adequate, it may seem inadequate. Now inadequacy is what we need to comment on. So let us link that point to the next point. Inadequacy will not make the agreement void. So students, up till now, have you realized we have covered 4 points? So you need to say consideration must be of some value. Consideration means something in return. Something means anything of value. So we have covered consideration word. Now come to adequate. It may seem adequate, it may seem inadequate. Inadequacy of consideration will not make the contract void. See how you can link the next sentence to the previous one. Yes, law only insists, it only requires the presence of consideration and not adequacy of it. Okay? Law wants consideration to be present. It may be adequate, it may be inadequate. Now again, link inadequacy to your next sentence. Okay, so frame your next sentence using the word inadequacy. Adequacy is for the parties to consider. It is for the parties to decide at the time of making the contract. They will decide whether that 500 rupees is adequate or not. At the time of making the contract, the consent should be free. Then in that case, even if the consideration is inadequate, contract is valid. Like how? If let's say, for example, I am selling the car to you. I'll write it over here, students. A is selling the car to B for rupees 500 and it is out of free consent. Then it's a valid contract. I'm selling it to you out of my free consent. It's a valid contract. But when will inadequacy of consideration be looked into? Inadequacy will be considered when the consent is not free. Okay, to decide whether the consent is free consent or not. That is the time when inadequacy will be used. Okay, so let's say that A sold a car to B out of coercion. He went to the court. The judge asked him to prove. He said, will I sell my car worth 5 lakhs only for 5,000? Only for 500? I was forced to do so. So that time inadequacy will be used as a piece of evidence to show that the consent was not free consent. Only that time we will use inadequacy. Other than that, inadequacy will not make the contract void. So the entire answer is covered over here. Let's go through it once again. So consideration must be of some value. Consideration means something in return. Something means anything of value. Consideration may seem adequate, it may seem inadequate. Inadequacy will not make the contract void. Law only requires the consideration to be present in the contract. They don't want it to be adequate. Adequacy will be only considered at the time of making the contract, and at the time of making the contract your consent should be free. Okay, so if the consideration is just 500 rupees for a car but your consent is free, it's a valid contract. But sometimes when the consent is not free, then inadequacy will be considered as a piece of evidence to show that the consent was not free. So this is what you will write. Let's go through the next question. Mr. Sham owned a motor car. Okay, so Mr. Sham owned a motor car. He approached Harish and offered to sell his car for rupees 3 lakh. Sham told Harish that the motor car is running at the rate of 20 kilometers per liter of petrol. Both students, this is important, you have to highlight this. Both the fuel meter and the speed meter were working perfectly. There is a reason why such kind of sentence is given in the question. It's very unique, so you need to highlight that. Harish agreed with the proposal of Sham. He took the delivery of the car by paying 3 lakh rupees to Sham. After 10 days, Harish came back with the car and stated that the claim made by Sham regarding the fuel efficiency was not correct, and therefore there was a case of misrepresentation. So what is the second word that you will highlight over here? You will highlight misrepresentation. Referring to the provisions of the Contract Act, decide and write whether Mr. Harish can rescind the contract, whether he can cancel the contract on the above ground. So students, I have highlighted few points. The first thing that we have highlighted is that both things are working perfectly. Okay. Then we have highlighted misrepresentation. Now, the entire question, the entire argument, the entire case is based on misrepresentation. So what we need to write down in our answer is something about misrepresentation, but we will not directly start with misrepresentation. We will say that consent should be free consent. But consent is not free when it is obtained by coercion, undue influence, fraud, misrepresentation. Or you can also say that if the consent is obtained by coercion, undue influence, fraud, misrepresentation, then the contract is voidable. Okay, so you can, what I mean to say is first explain consent, explain free consent, then say consent is not free if it is by these cases, it is voidable. You need not write stories, but just give some background before starting with your answer. Now, coercion, fraud, misrepresentation, they are voidable. That is mentioned under section 19. And undue influence is voidable. That is given under section 19A. Contract is voidable on the grounds of undue influence. You can also set it aside. That is given under section 19A. Now, contract is voidable. What is voidable? Voidable means that the parties can either treat the contract as valid or they can cancel the contract, rescind. Now, if you're treating it as valid, you say, no, I don't want to cancel the contract. It means you are insisting that I'm not canceling the contract, but I want you to perform the promise. Put me in a position that I would have been had the representation been true. So if you're treating the contract as valid, it means you're insisting that you be in a position that you would be if the representation was true, or you can even cancel the contract. Now, students, what we did was we said that the contract is voidable because misrepresentation is involved. Voidable, we explained the meaning of voidable. Now, contract is not always voidable. Contract may be valid if the parties had the means of discovering the truth with ordinary diligence. So over here, the fuel meter, the speed meter, they were working perfectly fine, and you need not be some expert to check that. So if you would have checked, if you would have exercised ordinary diligence, if you would have checked, you would have come to know that the fuel meter and the efficiency that is being claimed, that is not accurate. So over here, if you had the means of knowing the truth with ordinary diligence, can you cancel the contract? No. So you have to arrive at that solution. That is why I highlighted this sentence for you. Since both were working perfectly fine, you had the means of knowing the fuel efficiency, you cannot cancel the contract. Now students, let us go through the model answer for this question. As per the provisions of section 19, when the consent is obtained by coercion, fraud, misrepresentation, contract is voidable. Because they are referring to 19. They have not mentioned undue influence because undue influence is covered under section 19A. So a party whose consent is obtained by fraud or misrepresentation may, if he want, insist that the contract be performed, and he be put in the same position that he would have been had the representation been true. So in case the consent is obtained by fraud or misrepresentation, you can insist on the contract being performed. Exception is also mentioned, which even I have given. However, the contract is not voidable if the party whose consent was so obtained had the means of discovering the truth with ordinary diligence. If you would have been little careful, if you would have examined, you would have come to know that the fuel efficiency is not correct. So this is the theory, students. This is the theory. Then they have given the solution. In this case, both the fuel meter and the speed meter, they were working perfectly fine. So Mr. Harish had the means of discovering the truth with ordinary diligence. Therefore, the contract is not voidable. He cannot rescind the contract on the above ground. And the note that I have mentioned over here, you can copy this, pause the video, write it down. Done? Okay, let us proceed. Let us discuss the next question, question 4. Mr. S, aged 58 years, was employed in a government department. He was going to retire after 2 years. Mr. D made a proposal to S to apply for voluntary retirement from his post so that D could be appointed in his place. Students, this question is from the January 2021 examination. This was the first question. D offered a sum of 10 lakhs as consideration to S in order to induce him to retire. S refused to retire, but when he evaluated the amount offered as consideration, it was just double of his remuneration. Then he agreed. He agreed to receive the consideration and retire from the office. You have to decide whether the above agreement is valid. Explain with reference to the provisions of the Contract Act. Okay, is it valid? Is it valid? Students, what is happening in this case? He was working in the government department. So what are the keywords that you will highlight? He was working in the government department. So can I say this government department is nothing but public office? Okay, I remember something. Public office, it was mentioned in agreements which are opposed to public policy. Wow, that's fantastic. You have identified the theory, the concept on which you have to frame the answer. Okay, so in this case, what will we write? What should be the concept that we need to write? Section 23, it deals with every agreement of which the object or consideration is unlawful will be void. Okay, so 23 actually deals with unlawful object and unlawful consideration. Contract is void. Next, they have gone to mention that in case of agreements opposed to public policy, agreement for sale of public office, this is a public office. Okay, so in this case, it's a, what is the meaning of public office? It's a government office. Any agreement which affects the normal working of the government office, they are void. Now why are they void? See, you're bribing someone, you're encouraging corruption. How can you do that? How can you buy a position? What is the logic? What is the logic behind considering this as void? The deserving candidate will be left out, and the one who's ready to pay money, he will get the position. So it is unfair to the other candidates. That is why the agreement is void. So it leads to corruption. Then the deserving candidate will be left out. So any agreement which affects the normal working of the government office is void. There should be no money consideration for appointment in an office in which the public is interested, in which the general public is interested. Anybody can apply over here. Now, the word in the sentence is consideration. You need to explain that also. Consideration, why is it void? Because it is opposed to public policy, it is unlawful, hence it is void. So what will be your answer? Okay, how will you frame your answer? You will say that the agreements which contain unlawful object, unlawful consideration, they are void. Agreements opposed to public policy include agreement for the sale of public office. What is public office? It is government job. Why is government job? Why is it against the society? Why this buying of that job? Because any agreement which affects the normal working of the government offices, they are void. It leads to corruption, it leads to bribery. There should be no money consideration, only deserving candidates should be allowed. Why there should be no money consideration? Because you're leading to corruption. Okay, such consideration is opposed to public policy, it is unlawful, hence it is void. Okay, students, so that was question number 4. You can pause the video and you can take down these notes. Done? Okay. Next, question 5. What are the rights with the promisor in the following cases? Now, I don't have notes for this because these are very, very simple questions, just a one-liner question. So we'll just read and discuss. X promised to bring back Mr. Y to life again. Okay, so Y was dead and he said, I will bring him back to life. Is it physically possible? It's impossible. Impossible. What kind of impossibility? Initial or supervening? Superb, students. Very good. Initial impossibility. So in this case, because it is impossible right from the beginning, can I say that the contract is void ab initio? That's it. You're not supposed to write anything more. One line, that's it. Okay. Next. A agreed to sell 50 kgs of apples to B. The truck carrying the apples left for delivery on 15th of March. Now, students, there is a reason why they have given the date. They have mentioned the date because it is important to deliver the goods on time. So they left for delivery on 15th. It means it has to reach in time. See, in case of the transportation contract, time is considered to be an essence. So you need to first mention that it is important for the goods to be delivered on time. Time is essence. Another point which you can stress on is that we are sending apples. Apples are perishable. Okay. So in case of perishable goods, time is an essence of contract. What if the goods are delayed? Due to riots in between, they could deliver it only on 19th. So in this case, the goods obviously will decay, the apples will decay. I agree it is not the fault of the transporter, but law says that the contract will be discharged due to destruction of the subject matter. Now, we entered into contract for apples. If apples are destroyed, if they are decayed, if they have deteriorated, so there's no contract. It becomes void due to supervening impossibility. There is destruction of subject matter. And yes, they have also mentioned time is essence. Now you will say, ma'am, time is essence, then the contract should be voidable. No, in this case, I don't know why in the answer, model answer, they have written time is essence. Even if you don't mention that, I think the answer should be right. An artist promised to paint on a fixed day, promised to paint on a fixed date for a fixed amount of remuneration. Okay, so the keywords are artist, and he agreed to paint for a fixed remuneration, but he met with an accident and lost both his hands. Oh, so sad. Now, in this case, an artist is not able to perform his promise. Can it be performed by someone else? No, because we are entering into contract for his personal skill, for his personal consideration, for his personal involvement. It cannot be performed by anyone else. Okay, so in this case, the contract becomes void. It is now impossible to perform the contract. So again, we will frame our answer on the concept of supervening impossibility. This is due to incapacity of the parties to perform the promise. The next question. Abhishek entered into a contract for the import of toys from China. Valid contract. But due to disturbance in the relation, the imports were banned. So at the time of entering into contract, it was valid. But later on, subsequently, imports were banned. Can I say that it becomes impossible after the contract was entered? Can I say it is supervening impossibility, subsequent impossibility? Contract becomes void. Okay, it becomes void. The next question, that is the sixth question. Liquidated damage is a genuine pre-estimate of compensation of damages for certain anticipated breach of contract, whereas penalty, on the other hand, is an extravagant amount stipulated and is clearly unconscionable, unreasonable. It has no comparison to the loss suffered by the parties. Explain. Oh God, that's a very lengthy sentence. But the answer is very simple, students. They want you to differentiate between liquidated damages and penalty. Not differentiate exactly, but they want you to write down something about liquidated damage and how is it different from penalty. So I have few sentences for you. Now, what are liquidated damages? Liquidated damages are pre-estimated damages. Now, breach has not even occurred, but the parties pre-estimate the damage that in case there is a breach of contract, you will have to pay this damage. So they may decide like a lump sum amount. You will have to pay 50,000, you will have to pay 5 lakhs. Or they may say you will have to pay 200 rupees per bag, 500 rupees per tire. So these pre-estimated damages, they are known as liquidated damages. Now, why do parties decide this well in advance? Because they want a fair and a genuine pre-estimate of probable loss. They don't want to waste time when the breach occurs. They want you to be very clear, in case breach occurs, this is the damage that we have agreed, you will have to pay that. So it is a fair, it is a genuine estimate of the probable loss. Loss has not occurred, but they say in case loss occurs, this is the damage. Whereas penalty has no correlation with the actual loss. Penalty is a way of punishment. It is a way to make you remember that you committed breach of contract, pay penalty so that next time you don't repeat it. It is unconscionable, totally agreed. It is exorbitant. Now, if the loss is only 5,000 rupees, they will tell you to pay a penalty of 5 lakh rupees. Like say in case of traffic rules, if you break traffic signal, actually there is no harm as such, but they say no, you will be subject to penalty of, let's say, 5,000 rupees. If you have parked your vehicle in a no parking zone, you will have to pay 10,000 rupees as parking charges, as penalty. So in this case, the fine is so exorbitant, it is so high, it is so much that you will remember next time. Once you pay 10,000, you will never park in a no parking area. So penalty has no relation, it has no correlation with the actual loss. It does not bear any relation to the actual damage suffered by the aggrieved party. It is clearly unconscionable, it is unreasonable, it has no comparison to the actual loss. Now, I've also given you examples like A offered to supply wheat to B at 5,000 and B promised to pay 5,000 rupees for that. But they have decided in advance at the time of entering contract that in case there is a breach of contract, then you will have to pay 200 rupees per bag as damages. Okay. In case of penalty, A gave in loan to B at, let's say, 15% rate of interest. It was due on 15th of June. B had to pay it along with interest at the rate of 15%. But if B failed, they had agreed that you will now have to pay interest at the rate of 20%. So it's like a penalty for late payment. Okay. So that is penalty. Students, you can pause the video and you can take down notes. All right. Next, question number 7. We have almost come to an end of the questions in Contract Act. Let us discuss question 7. This is from the November 2020 attempt. Mr. S and R, they made a contract wherein S agreed to deliver paper cup manufacturing machine to R and to receive payment on delivery. So what will happen in this case? X will deliver and at the same time Y will make the payment. That is your hint. This is the hint in the question, students. S agreed to deliver the paper cup manufacture machine to R and R agreed to receive the payment on delivery. It means that you will deliver the cups and he will make the payment. This is nothing but simultaneous performance of promise. It is reciprocal promisee. The hint is always in the question. The answer is always in the question. Now, let us discuss the theory. Okay. On delivery, okay, there's just one sentence remaining. Let us read that. On delivery date, Mr. R didn't pay the agreed price. Decide whether X is bound to fulfill his promise. If R has not paid the price, is X bound to deliver the machine? Okay. Now, in case of simultaneous performance of reciprocal promise, section 51, the promisor and promisee both have to perform their promises at the same time. If the promisor is not ready to perform his promise, promisee will not perform his, and vice versa. So students, I have given you an example over here. X promises to deliver rice to Y and Y promises to pay the amount on delivery. Okay. So he will pay the amount on delivery. Now, promisor need not perform his promise unless and until the promisee is ready and willing to perform his promise. Promisee may not perform his promise unless and until the promisor is ready and willing to perform his promise. Both the promises have to be performed simultaneously. So if one party is not ready, other party will not perform his promise. So that is explained later. See, such promises constitute concurrent conditions, means both have to perform at the same time. What is concurrent? If one of the promises is not performed, the other need not be performed. That is concurrent. Performance is conditional on the performance of the other. You perform, then I will perform simultaneously. Okay, simultaneously we will perform. So my performance is based on your performance simultaneously. You deliver, I will pay, because both have to be performed at the same time. You pay, only then I will deliver, okay, at the same time. So students, this is the theory which they have mentioned in the model answer also. So please pause the video, write this theory. All right. Okay. This is the length of the answer which they have given as the model answer. I have covered everything. I have covered every point in my note. Okay. So S is not bound to deliver unless and until H is ready and willing to pay the price, because both the promises have to be performed simultaneously. In case a question is asked, this should ideally be for around 4 marks. Let us proceed to the next question. Y has given loan to G of rupees 30 lakhs. G defaulted on the due date. The debt became time barred. Okay. After the time barred debt, Mr. G agreed to settle the full amount to Y, whether acceptance is enforceable by law. All right. So they want to discuss about time barred debt. Okay. So the discussion is relating to time barred debt. Let us go through the note. Even if the debt has become time barred, the debtor may agree to pay the amount, but there are conditions to be satisfied. Now let's say, for example, that I have to pay you 5,000 rupees. Okay, I have to give you 5,000. Debt has become time barred. Now you cannot legally enforce it from me. One day I come and tell you I am ready to pay you 5,000. But your friend who was sitting next to you said, Why are you paying 5,000? You will pay 5,000 to him. I will pay 5,000 to you, but I will not get anything in return. Don't pay. You looked at your friend. Anyways, I cannot recover it legally. Why are you stopping him? Who taught you all this? It is written in law that debt has become time barred. You are not giving him any consideration. He need not pay to you. Law says that if the debt has become time barred, okay, if it has become a time barred debt, it is legally not enforceable. But if the debtor is coming and giving it to you, let it be. Let the creditor enjoy. So in this case, there are a few conditions which are to be satisfied. If I make the agreement in writing, I sign it, or my agent signs it, and it relates to a time barred debt, then if I'm making the payment to you, and even if I'm not getting anything in return, it will still be a valid contract. Debt may be either paid in whole or part. Like I have to pay you 5,000, I may pay you 3,000. That's okay. Even if I'm not getting any consideration in return, it's okay because it relates to a time barred debt. So time barred debt is valid even without consideration. So students, these are the points that you should mention in your answer. The last question now. A and B, they enter into a contract to supply a unique item. That is a hint. That is the hint, unique item. The alternate of which is not available in the market. A refused to supply. Refusal, that is the hint. Refusal, it means it is a hint that there is breach of contract. Okay. What directions could be given by the court for such breach? Now it is a unique item. What if the aggrieved party wants to find it? Even if it tries, they will not get it. So the aggrieved party went to the court and said, Judge, monetary compensation is not enough. Where will I find that unique item? Let's say it's very rare. It is made only by that particular manufacturer with whom I had contracted. Now he's refusing to sell the goods to me. From where will I find the goods? You please ask him to perform the contract. So we can insist, we can file a suit for specific performance. So students, what is the theory that the institute expects us to write? First, you will say that there is breach of contract. There are remedies available. One of the remedy is filing a suit for specific performance. When will you file a suit for specific performance? When monetary damages are not adequate. It's a unique item. And specific performance will be granted only by the order of the court. So it is left to the discretion of the court. You can ask the party to perform the promise according to the terms of the contract. So these are the few points that you will mention in your answer. Let's go through it once again. Monetary damages are not adequate. You can insist on specific performance, but specific performance will be granted only and only by the order of the court if the court is convinced. The court may ask the promiser to perform the promise as per the terms of the contract. So students, you can pause the video and take down notes for the second and the third question. And with this, we also come to an end of our first video, wherein we discussed only those questions which were asked from the Contract Act. Students, in the next video, I will discuss the remaining questions from Sale of Goods Act, Partnership and Companies Act. If you have liked watching this video, do like, share and subscribe to your channel Theory Masters Learning and visit my website because I have many interesting products for you.